I ended up in the hospital after a work accident, one my own brother caused. And you know what my family did? They laughed. They left me behind. And when I finally cut them off, they even tried suing me. But what they didn't know was that I had leverage they'd never recover from. So here's the setup. I'm 29, a guy who's been holding my family's world together for years. Bills, money, the business, you name it, I carried it. But the second I needed them, gone. What came next was a few months of pure chaos. And honestly, I still don't know if it was karma, justice, or just long overdue. If there's one thing you need to understand about my family, it's this: responsibility never belonged to them. It always landed on me. When bills were late, I covered them. When dad's business was on the brink, I kept the lights on. Everyone else? They lived like life was some kind of endless vacation package. And me? I was the one making sure the ship didn't sink. And the dumb part? I actually thought that meant we were a team. Turns out, I was just the designated adult in a family of kids who never grew up. It happened on a late shift. Just me and a couple of guys trying to finish some framing at a site. Because let's be real, deadlines don't pause just because my family takes weekends off. I was working up on this temporary platform. Not crazy high, but high enough that if it gave out, it was going to ruin my night. Earlier that day, I told my brother Lucas, make sure this is locked in. Make sure it's sturdy. And he gave me that fake confident nod. Yeah, bro, I got it. The same tone he always uses when you know he didn't actually do it. But I wanted to believe. Just once, I wanted to believe he'd handle it. That was my mistake. I put my weight on it, started lining up a measurement. And then, like the floor decided it was done working with me, it shifted. One side dropped, and gravity dragged me straight down. Hard. I didn't even feel the pain before I heard the crack. A couple ribs gone, wrist on fire, shoulder torn open bad enough I'd need stitches. For the record, hitting the ground like that? 0 out of 10, don't recommend. The guys on site freak called 911, and I just lay there thinking, so this is how it ends. I'd asked Lucas to do one thing. One thing. Paramedics showed up, cut off my work jacket, strapped me in, and next thing I knew, I was fading out. On the way, they asked if I had family to call. I gave them the usual list: Mom, Dad, Lucas, my sisters. Same contacts I trusted for years. They said they'd pass the info to the ER desk. So in my head, I thought, okay, by the time I wake up, someone will be waiting. Yeah. No. I woke up hours later. Empty room. Machines beeping. Nurse comes in. I ask if anyone showed. She checks the chart, shakes her head. They'd called, they'd left messages, but nobody came. And I'd love to say I was shocked. But deep down, I wasn't. My family's been dodging responsibility my whole life. If something requires effort, it always slides back into my hands. Still, I try to make excuses for them. Maybe traffic. Maybe something came up. You give people excuses when you want to believe they care. And then my phone buzzed. Not a call. Not a "you okay?" Text. Instagram. I open it, and there they are. Lucas and my sisters, crammed into an SUV with energy drinks, hyped for a trip. Caption: Lake House Rental Week. Let's go. Posted less than 5 hours after I hit the ground. That's when it clicked. They weren't coming. They got the call. They knew. And they chose to pack their bags and leave. I stared at that picture, phone shaking in my good hand. People were commenting underneath: squad goals, jealous, y'all live the life. Meanwhile, I'm lying in a hospital bed, taped up like a broken action figure, ribs stabbing me every time I breathe. And Lucas? He even dropped a laughing emoji in the replies, like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't ignored the one job I gave him. That was the moment something in me shut off. Not an explosion. Not rage. More like a rope snapping after being pulled too tight for too long. Quiet. Final. I wasn't family to them. I was just the guy who paid for their mistakes. The safety net. The fixer. Not a brother. Not a son. A free pass with a wallet. And the irony? I asked Lucas to secure a platform. He said he did. And then he left me broken on the ground while he went to party at a lake house. If that doesn't sum up our entire family dynamic in one moment, I don't know what does. By the time the nurse came back to check my vitals, I'd already made my decision. No warnings. No explanations. No second chances. Let them think I'd crawl back like always. Their wake-up call was coming. That night, I didn't feel sad. I didn't even feel angry. I just felt done. The pain was real. Every breath felt like bricks stacked on my chest. My wrist wrapped like a burrito, stitches burning for dripping. My phone sat dark on the table. No texts, no calls, just the buzzing lights above me. And then ping. Morning. A message. Not from them. From Grandpa. The old man's pushing 80, half deaf, but sharper than anyone else in the family. Heard what happened. How are you holding up? He didn't ask about bills. Didn't ask when I'd be back at work. Didn't want money. Just wanted to know if I was alive. Even cracked a joke. Guess now you'll finally sit still for once. I laughed. Hurt too much to keep going, but that call meant everything. He rang again that night. And the night after. Every single evening, he checked in. Asked about the pain. Asked if I needed him to drive over. I told him no. What was he going to do, lift me out of bed? But the fact he even offered meant more than anything. And then my aunt called. The only one in the family who's ever actually worked for her own. My aunt called next. She didn't ask for money. She didn't guilt-trip me. She asked if I needed her to come down and sit with me. I told her no, but she still sent this massive box of snacks because she knows hospital food tastes like cardboard dipped in sadness. In that moment, she was already 10 times more supportive than my parents or siblings. And she didn't even owe me a thing. Then came the wildest part. A co-worker, Brian, the guy I usually just nod at during meetings, sent me a text. Heard you in the hospital. Wanted to have food dropped off? No questions. Just say yes. I barely talked to the dude outside of work, but here he was offering to help. Meanwhile, my own brother was probably shotgunning energy drinks at the lake house. By the second day, I stopped expecting a call from my family. My phone battery dipped under 20% because I kept checking it, like maybe they'd surprise me. Spoiler, they didn't. But then came a different kind of surprise. I opened Instagram again. Why? Yeah, I know, I should have learned my lesson, but curiosity hit. I scrolled through stories, and there it was, a clip of them in the car on their way to the lake house. Lucas recording, everyone laughing. Maggie in the back seat saying, well, he's in a hospital. What are we going to do, sit around and cry? Then Taylor laughed so hard she nearly spilled her drink. I replayed that clip 3 times. Not because I couldn't believe it, but because it was just so on brand for them. Almost funny. Almost. That wasn't neglect. That wasn't them being busy. That was them knowing I was laid up in a hospital bed and deciding it was comedy material. They didn't just ignore me. They mocked me. And that's when my brain shifted. Hurt turned into calculation. I grabbed the little notepad from the bedside table and started writing. Not some dramatic revenge manifesto, just numbers. Cold math. Left column. Every single bill I'd been covering for them. Mom's medication refill. Dad's half of the mortgage. Maggie's grad school loan. Taylor's car lease. Lucas's temporary credit card debt payments. By the time I finished scribbling, the total came out to $2,780. Every single month. Nearly $3 grand bleeding from my account so they could keep coasting. And that didn't even count the one-time emergencies. Then, in the right column, I wrote the names of people who actually checked in. Grandpa, Aunt, Brian. 3 people. Not one of them lived under the same roof I grew up in. Not one of them was draining me dry. I sat back, stared at that paper, and it hit me. I wasn't family to them. I was infrastructure. Like Wi-Fi. Like electricity. Nobody thanks it. Nobody cares. You just expect it to be there until suddenly it isn't. And the second I needed them, dead silence. Well, no, not silence. Laughter. And weirdly, that gave me calm. The pain in my ribs was still there, but the weight I'd been carrying for years suddenly lifted. They thought I was too scared to cut them off. They thought I needed to be the fixer. They thought wrong. That's when I decided, when I got out of that hospital, things are going to change. Not in some big dramatic confrontation. That's not my style. No, I'd make the changes the way I handle business. Quiet, precise, effective. Because if they could laugh at me while I was lying in a hospital bed, then I could damn well laugh when their bills started bouncing. The next morning, I got discharged. Walking into my apartment felt different. Quiet, clean, every single thing exactly where I left it. I dropped onto the couch, hospital wristband still on, and realized, for the first time in years, I was in a place that didn't need me to fix something. That night, I pulled out my laptop and started making moves. Not dramatic, not emotional, just practical. First stop, online banking. Mom's medication auto-refill. Canceled. Dad's half of the mortgage? Gone. Maggie's grad school loan? Deleted. Auto pay for Taylor's car lease? Canceled. Lucas's temporary car debt? Nice try. Removed. It felt like cleaning out a junk closet, pulling out one useless thing after another, stuff I never should have been carrying in the first place. By the time I closed the browser, their entire safety net was gone. No warnings. No texts. No speeches. Just silence. Let them figure it out. And it didn't take long. The next morning, my phone buzzed. Taylor, hey, my car payment bounced. Can you check if there's a mistake? She even attached a screenshot of her overdue notice, like I was her personal IT department. I left it on read. An hour later, Maggie emailed me. Emailed, not texted, asking if I could please reinstate her loan payment. Just for this month. I closed the email without replying. That afternoon, Lucas slid into my messages. Yo, bro, you probably missed the Venmo request. Lake House went over budget. Everyone's chipping in. Send when you can. Nothing says family love like dropping a laughing emoji on your injured brother and then asking for money while he's still limping. I left that on read, too. By dinner, I had 10 missed calls. Mom, Dad, Maggie, Taylor, even Lucas, who usually dodges responsibility like it's cardio. My voicemail filled up quick. Mom first. We don't know what's going on, but this isn't how families treat each other. No mention of the accident. No mention of the hospital. Just guilt. Then Dad. Mortgage didn't go through. If something's changed, you should have been man enough to say so. Man enough. From a guy who had me covering his bills for years. Sure, Taylor's was calmer. Too calm. Like she rehearsed it. We're all stressed right now. Just call us. We'll figure it out. Like always. That phrase. Like always. Translation, I fix everything. They pretend we fixed it together. By the end of the night, I was almost entertained. Less than 24 hours without me holding the strings, and the cracks were already showing. Day 2, things escalated. Maggie texted me screenshots of overdue notices. Captions like this can't be right. Taylor followed with another voicemail. She couldn't get to class without her car. Lucas tried to play it casual again. Hey man, can you spot me $150 until Friday? Just a quick favor. I ignored it. Mom sent a wall of text, paragraphs long. I don't know why you're punishing us. This isn't what family does. We've always been there for each other. Always been there. Yeah, unless I'm the one bleeding in a hospital bed. And the more their calls stacked up, the calmer I felt. Years of them leaning on me. And now I was watching them scramble like kids who just found out Santa's not real. By the end of the week, the fallout was undeniable. Taylor's car got flagged. Maggie even had one of her classmates message me, trying to convince me I was hurting everyone by outsourcing. Manipulation. Brilliant. Meanwhile, Grandpa called every single night like clockwork. Not to guilt me, not to ask for money, just to check how my ribs were healing. Aunt sent another package, this time stacked with frozen meals. And Brian, the coworker I barely spoke to, had Uber Eats drop dinner at my door with a simple rest-up message. The contrast was ridiculous. The people who weren't bleeding me dry were the ones who actually cared. I stopped counting the missed calls. They weren't slowing down, they were multiplying. Mom, Dad, my sisters. Random numbers I didn't even recognize. Friends of theirs, probably trying to tag in as backup. It was like watching a team run plays from a playbook I'd already memorized. But I didn't bite. Not once. Because here's the truth. I didn't break this family. They did. The second they left me to rot in a hospital bed while they drove off to party at a lake house. That was the moment the family bond cracked. All I did was stop paying the entry fee to their fantasy. And watching them scramble without me? Funniest thing I'd seen in years. But I wasn't done. Cutting their bills, that was just round one. They thought that was bad. Wait until they realized what I'd actually been holding together for the past 5 years. See, our family has this remodeling company. Technically, it's Dad's business. But in reality, it was mine. Back when Dad needed a loan and couldn't get approved, we signed papers. Guess whose name ended up on the LLC? Mine. They never read the fine print. They just assumed I'd keep things running. Spoiler, they assumed wrong. For years, I'd been the ghost in the machine, keeping the books clean, negotiating contracts, renewing licenses, dealing with suppliers. Meanwhile, my parents and siblings? They smiled for the cameras, posed for clients, bragged at family dinners, pretended they were entrepreneurs. The truth? Without me, the whole operation was one bad invoice away from collapse. So one quiet afternoon, I sat down at my laptop and logged in. First thing, revoked their admin access. Every single one of them. Then I froze outgoing payments, paused accounts payable, updated the website with a banner. Operations temporarily paused under restructure. Not loud, not dramatic, surgical. Next, I drafted emails to our core suppliers. Professional, clean. Since I was the sole member on the LLC paperwork, the only authorized signer on vendor accounts, they already knew who the real point of contact was. Please direct all questions to me. Sign it formally, just to make it sting. The fallout hit quick. Next morning, 7 missed calls from Dad. His voicemails were a roller coaster. First calm, professional. Hey, there seems to be an issue with the accounts. Call me back, we'll sort it out. Second, irritated. Clients are here, and no one can access files. Fix this immediately. By the 7th, he was practically begging, this isn't like you. Don't do this to the family. Because me lying alone in a hospital bed with broken ribs while they partied at a lake house. That was totally in character. Suppliers even forwarded me Dad's messages. Some thought it was funny. One even sent me a screenshot of Dad threatening legal action if they didn't release materials. They laughed. They knew who the authority really was. And Lucas? Of course, he handled it like a 12-year-old. Posted a photo of the company van outside the house with a caption, "When you give your life to something and get stabbed in the back, buddy." The only thing Lucas ever gave his life to was Monster Energy and Xbox Live. Then Aunt texted me, "Got something you might want." She'd screen recorded that Instagram story before it got deleted. The one where Maggie joked, "Well, he's in the hospital. What we're going to do is sit around and cry," followed by laughter. I'd seen it live, but having it saved? That was different. That was proof. Receipts. If they tried to spin it, I had evidence. That was the nail. Any part of me that thought we'd work it out gone. So I went deeper. Filed paperwork to move the company's official address. Paid out every dime already earned. Froze payroll. Nobody got paid unless I said so. Then I scheduled a meeting with the crew I actually trusted. The guys who showed up rain or shine, even when my family couldn't be bothered. Offered them contracts better than the family ever gave. Told them straight up, business keeps going, but it's ours now. You in? Every single one said yes. By week 2, the panic was unbearable. Dad left a voicemail, voice cracking. "You don't understand what you're doing. This is bigger than you. The whole family depends on this." Yeah, I understood perfectly. That was the problem. Mom tried the soft approach. "Please, whatever this is, don't destroy what your father built." What he built. Funny. If Dad built it, why couldn't he even log in without calling me? Taylor sent me a voice message. "I know things are stressful, but you know we love you. We'll apologize if that's what you need." Like it was optional. Lucas kept firing texts. "You're overreacting. You're going to burn the family down over one bad weekend." One bad weekend. My ribs disagreed. I didn't reply. Didn't need to. The truth was finally clear. Not just to me, but to everyone. Contractors, suppliers, extended family. They all saw it. My parents and siblings weren't leaders. They weren't even partners. They were deadweight. And for the first time, I wasn't dragging them anymore. I knew they'd panic without me paying bills. But I didn't expect courtroom drama. Turns out, when you take away their free ride, their next genius idea is to sue the driver. It started with Taylor. She showed up at my apartment lobby unannounced, hammering the buzzer like a cop. I watched her on the security cam, arms crossed, waving papers like she'd just cracked a case. I didn't let her in, but a neighbor did. Big mistake. 2 minutes later, she was banging on my door. "You can't just cut us off. This is financial abuse." Financial abuse. From the same sister who forgot her car payments ran through my card. She slid the papers under the door. Small claims court. She'd filed, saying I promised to keep paying her lease. Her evidence? A text from 2 years ago where I said, "I'll cover this until you're stable." 2 years later, still stabilizing. I laughed so hard my ribs hurt. I saved the papers, didn't open the door, let her storm off after calling me selfish loud enough for the whole hallway to hear. Next day, Dad left a voicemail. Your actions have legal consequences. If you think you can just take the company and leave your family, you're mistaken. Reality check. He didn't even know the LLC had been in my name for 5 years. I played that back twice just for laughs. 2 days later, a letter showed up in my mailbox. Looked official, law office letterhead and everything. Except it wasn't. Cheap template, obvious fake. Claimed I wrongfully took over the family business. I Googled the firm. Didn't exist. Lucas probably whipped it up in Canva, thinking I'd fold. Then Maggie gave it a shot. Fired off an email. Subject line, screaming urgent legal notice. Said she'd spoken to a friend in law school who told her I could be charged with financial neglect of dependents. Dependents? She's 26. I replied once, just to amuse myself. If you're my dependent, where's my Father's Day card? No response. But the funniest attempt came from Lucas. He tried tagging me on Facebook with this long, teary rant about how brothers are supposed to share assets equally, about how I couldn't just kick people out of family business. He ended it with, "This will hold up in court." The comments section destroyed him. Contractors I'd worked with piled on, clowning him. One guy wrote of what? Fortnite? Another added, "Pretty sure you gotta work to be in a business, champ." Lucas untagged me and deleted the post within the hour. Meanwhile, I kept everything. Every text, every voicemail, every fake letter, neatly tucked into a folder on my desktop labeled Clown Show Legal. If they ever tried something real, I'd bury them with receipts. One night, Aunt called, half laughing, half annoyed. "They're telling everyone you stole the company," she said, like they forgot who had been doing the actual work all these years. Grandpa got on the line too, and for the first time, I heard anger in his voice. Pathetic, he muttered. Entitlement dressed as victimhood. Then he told me not to worry. Said he'd already started talking to his lawyer about his will. I'm not leaving money for lawsuits. I'm leaving it where it builds something. I didn't need to ask what he meant. And here's the best part. Their legal threats backfired almost immediately. Taylor's claim? Tossed before it even made it to a hearing. The judge told her flat out, "He's not your guarantor. He's your brother." Maggie's dependent theory? Her own law school friend admitted she misunderstood the law. And Lucas's fake lawyer letter? Aunt lit him up in the family chat. When did Canva law offices open up shop? By the end of the week, they weren't wannabe plaintiffs anymore. They were full-on clowns. Mom tried damage control, texting me, "We should have handled this privately. You didn't need to. Embarrass your siblings." Embarrass them? Please. They did that all on their own. Meanwhile, the business kept moving. The crew I brought in had signed their contracts. Suppliers were happy. Clients paid up. And for the first time, my bank account looked like mine, not some family group fund. The contrast was unreal. My family was choking on overdraft fees and empty threats that went nowhere. I was eating takeout, ribs taped but smiling, watching Netflix on an account I actually paid for myself. That was the difference. They needed me. I didn't need them. And the harder they pushed with fake lawsuits and delusional claims, the clearer it became to everyone around us. I was the only adult in the room. But adults don't just sit there and laugh. Adults use leverage. And I had plenty. They wanted legal action? Fine. Let's talk real legal action. I pulled out the thick envelope from the hospital, site file included. ER intake notes, plus the preliminary incident report. The site's safety officer had filed it the next day. Neat little packet. Cracked ribs, fractured wrist, 20 stitches. Cause noted, platform unsecured despite warning. My statement, recorded in the ER, backed up by the site report. And that last part, that was the nail in Lucas's coffin. In black and white, it screamed negligence. I hadn't used it yet. Not because I was scared, but because timing mattered. And now, perfect timing. Sure enough, they tried to corner me again. This time, they got bold enough to show up together. All four of them, Mom, Dad, Maggie, Taylor, standing in the lobby of my building like they were staging an intervention. Lucas didn't bother to show, which was hilarious, considering he was the one who put me in the hospital to begin with. I walked down, ribs still taped, wrists still braced, but smiling like I'd been waiting for this exact moment. Mom started first, her voice sweet enough to rot teeth. "We need to move past this. Families fight, but they forgive. We can't keep tearing ourselves apart. I didn't even answer her. I slid the injury report out of the folder and placed it on the lobby table like I was laying down poker cards. This is the difference between your Canva law nonsense and actual paperwork. I leaned in. See the part where it says negligence? See the part where it says permanent injury? That's real. If I wanted, I could sue for damages and take every dime you have, house, cars, savings. You'd be stripped before the first hearing was done. Silence. Maggie's face went pale, like she suddenly remembered mocking me in the car while Lucas filmed. Taylor looked at the paper like it was written in another language. Dad crossed his arms, trying to hold his tough guy act, but his eyes kept darting to the signature line. Finally, he muttered, voice low, "Son, we don't need to escalate this." I smirked. Escalate? Dad, I'm not escalating. I'm showing you how lucky you are I didn't. That one landed. He actually shut up. Maggie tried to recover. We didn't mean harm. It was just bad timing. You know how people get when they're stressed. I leaned back, still smiling. Yeah, some people get stressed and laugh about their brother being in the hospital. I get stressed and restructure companies. Guess which one works out better? It always looks better on paper. Mom tried another angle. Her voice dipped in guilt. You can't just erase us from the business. That's not what family does. Funny you say that, I told her, tapping the report. Because leaving someone bleeding on the road to go party at a lake house? Pretty sure that's not what family does either. Taylor finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. So what now? Now? I said, now I run the company alone. You get nothing. You contribute nothing. You want to complain? Take me to Canva court again. Maybe the jury of Instagram followers will side with you. They didn't know what to do with that. They just stood there, swallowing air like fish out of water. I picked up the report, slid it back into the folder, and walked past them without another word. Later that night, my aunt called. She'd already heard the whole story. My family couldn't resist spinning themselves as victims to anyone who'd listen. But instead of judgment, she told me she was proud of me, proud that I stood my ground. Then she said, "Your grandfather wants to talk to you." Grandpa's voice came on the line, steady and sharper than ever. "I've watched this long enough. They've taken you for granted your whole life. I can't sit by and reward that." "What do you mean?" I asked, though I already had a good guess. "I met with my lawyer today," he said. "Their shares of the estate gone. That money is going into your business. You've built something real. They've built nothing but excuses." I sat in silence for a second, not because I doubted him, but because it was the first time someone in the family had actually drawn a hard line besides me. "Grandpa, they're going to lose their minds," I finally said. "Let them," he replied. "They've been living off borrowed time and borrowed money. It's about time they learned what reality looks like." I couldn't help but grin. Guess I wasn't the only adult in the room after all. When Grandpa told me he'd pulled the plug on their inheritance, I thought maybe it was just tough talk. Nope. A week later, the fallout started rolling in right on schedule. The first sign came from Lucas, of course. He posted this dramatic rant online about how some people stab their own family in the back for money, and how even grandparents could be manipulated. He filmed it in his beat-up sedan, probably on break from the warehouse job he'd finally picked up. He tried to sound tough, but the comments tore him apart. Even his own friends weren't buying it. "Bro, you were living on his credit card. Calm down." Another wrote, "Didn't you laugh when he was in the hospital?" Lucas deleted the post within hours, but not before screenshots made their way into the extended family chat. Maggie was more calculated. She sent me a long email about how Grandpa's decision was disproportionate punishment for what she called one mistake. One mistake. As if mocking your brother while he's bleeding out is the same as forgetting to do the dishes. She framed herself as the victim, claiming her academic career was now in jeopardy because of decisions out of her control. I didn't even bother replying. Last I checked, grad school didn't require leeching off your brother's bank account. Taylor, on the other hand, went straight for the guilt trip. She called Grandpa directly and begged him to reconsider. When that didn't work, she left me a voicemail, sobbing about how she was left with nothing and had no options. Hilarious, considering she still had her parents' house to move back into. Left with nothing just meant she lost the free car and the automatic payments I used to cover. Welcome to adulthood, sis. Mom and Dad, though, they were the loudest. They called everyone they could think of, cousins, neighbors, even some of Grandpa's old church friends. They told anyone who'd listen that I'd stolen the company and manipulated an old man into changing his will. But nobody bought it. Everyone knew who actually kept the business running. Contractors backed me up. Suppliers backed me up. Even my aunt shut Mom down in the family group chat by posting the screen recording of Maggie's lake house joke. And just like that, their little smear campaign collapsed under its own weight. Meanwhile, I was busy actually building something. Grandpa's investment hit my account, and for the first time, it felt like I wasn't juggling 20 balls with one hand. I hired new guys, upgraded equipment, gave raises to the crew that had stuck it out with me. The company slimmed down, but sharpened up. No freeloaders, no fake partners, just people who worked. Clients noticed. Jobs got done faster, cleaner, with fewer screw-ups. Every day, I got stronger while they got weaker. Lucas dragged himself through night shifts, swearing it was temporary. Maggie pulled out of grad school completely, making some vague post about a mental health break. Taylor sold her car and quietly moved back home, pretending it was just for a few months, though everyone knew she wasn't leaving anytime soon. And my parents? They sat in that house, stewing, waiting for someone else to bail them out the way I used to. Grandpa called me again not long after. They're furious, he said, almost chuckling. You should have heard your dad. Said I was tearing the family apart. I told him he should have thought about that before leaving his son in a hospital bed. And for the first time in years, I actually felt like someone in the family understood. Not just understood, took my side. One Sunday evening, Mom tried again. She texted, "Family dinners don't feel the same without you. Can't you drop by just once?" I stared at it for a long time, not because I was tempted, but because I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just nothing. Like she was texting a stranger who used to live in the same house. So instead of replying, I booked a trip. Oregon, a little cabin in the woods, surrounded by trees and fog. No calls, no Venmo requests, no fake emergencies. Just me. For the first time in my life, I woke up without feeling like I owed anyone anything. No bills, no guilt trips, no obligations. Just peace. I still talk to Grandpa, still visit Aunt now and then. They don't bring up the split because they don't need to. They saw it happen the same way I did, piece by piece, year by year. Grandpa still calls me the only one who earned it, and jokes that my siblings should have sued me for loss of free babysitting. They get it. They've always gotten it. And the rest? They've got their lives, if you can even call it that. A warehouse job, a dropped degree, a repossessed car, a mortgage they can't afford. All of it built on the same thing it was always built on, me. The only difference now is that I'm not holding it up anymore. People love to say family is everything. But what they don't tell you is family can also be dead weight. And if you don't cut it loose, it'll drag you straight to the bottom. I had to break bones to see it.